Winter run Chinook salmon, which is what we raise at the hatchery, are an endangered species. They are actually an endangered run of Chinook salmon. In the past few years, they've had pretty catastrophic temperature-dependent mortality for the fish that spawn in the river. And the hatchery is really there to support the naturally and wild spawning fish in the river. And we're a restoration hatchery that supports the natural production. The hatchery in years like this is essentially a lifeline for each year class of fish. And as you mentioned, they do mature. The majority of Chinook salmon mature in their third year. So if we're in our third year of really poor conditions in the river during their spawning time, the onus on the hatchery to maintain the run is critical. So maintaining those temperatures in the hatchery is critical every year. This year is important because we're in the third year of this extreme drought conditions. That really the biggest issue is the lake level. The way that we draw water from the lake is through the penstocks that feed the power plant, and those are at a fixed elevation. So the temperature control device on the backside of the dam can select water from different elevations, but with critically low lake levels, we're limited to just the lowest settings on the temperature control device. So as the lake level lowers, the penstocks and where we draw water from encounters warmer and warmer water. So in these critically low water years in Shasta Lake, we encounter temperatures that are outside of that optimal range that I talked about, and we also see increased volatility in temperature over the course of a day. So while every year is important to maintain these temperatures, the critical drought years necessitate extra infrastructure for that to continue. First iteration of chillers were in 2014 and 2015. We had a similarly severe drought in those years. And in those years, the expanse of the hatchery and the level of production that we undertook was less. So the size of the chillers, based on how much flow we have coming into the hatchery, essentially, the chiller infrastructure was on a smaller scale. But it was successful in limiting the temperature-dependent mortality in the hatchery, and the hatchery was able to reach its conservation goals in those years. If we didn't chill the water coming into the hatchery in these critical years where we encounter really low lake levels, fish would be exposed to temperatures beyond their livable range, and we'd have mortality in the hatchery. Last year, for instance, we saw temperatures getting close to 70, so about 69 degrees for a very short period of time, just a couple days, but that would be, we would see mass mortality, acute mortality. So, very quick onset, it would be a bad situation. So in addition to that threat of just outright mortality from the temperature itself, at increased temperatures, we also see increased incidence of pathogens and disease associated with those pathogens in the hatchery setting. That also leads to mortality, and it also leads to just, poor quality conditions for rearing fish. The idea is that we would incorporate chillers and some other mitigation measures to, prevent the need for this recurring rental and contracting type situation for emergency chiller use, and really provide permanent infrastructure that would, even in the most extreme drought years, provide adequate temperatures to the hatchery. But there are also plans to redesign and rebuild Livingston stone to provide a more permanent type of hatchery, and also one that incorporates the idea that we have sort of a non-drought year function, and that's to produce a fairly minimal number of fish to support the winter run Chinook. And then we also have this drought year function where we produce many more fish, and it requires a lot more infrastructure to produce those fish. So the very early stages of that planning process are underway. And as part of that total hatchery redesign, we would incorporate chillers and, as I said, other infrastructure improvements that would provide cool temperatures in the worst conditions. Hatchery is owned and operated by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and so we handle all of the fish aspects. The Bureau of Reclamation is the funding agency, and in this specific instance also, the Bureau of Reclamation owns and operates the entire water delivery system. We have constant communication about infrastructure concerns, about funding concerns, and things like that. So, and just on a side note, I think it was last week we were a little bit short-handed and had a few more fish to spawn than was anticipated, and I was able to just call up Derek and say, "Hey man, we need a hand," and he shot down from the office here and helped out. So definitely a working good partnership.